Yes, it's a forest of zomi padonas. I'm going to talk to you again this time. It's a great story, and it's a feeling that I'm going to give back to them. Hello. There are many things to do. This is for the time being. Hello. There are many things to do, that's it. At first glance, it's easy to get wrong, but I thought it was a wonderful course. I've been doing it this time, but when I'm in the mood for it. It's a great original. I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I'm a great person. When you don't like your ex, you don't like your ex. This is a staggered netta. There was a story like this. But when the ramen shop is open, it's open. But when it's closed, it's closed. When it's open, it's open. When it closes, it closes. When it's closed, it's not empty. When it's empty, it's closed. And when it's closed, it's very funny. I, Chidori, Netta is very fond of each other. It's a great feeling. It's a big husband. It's a big 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 feeling. It's a big feeling. It's in fact, it was in the picture that I was getting these comments, and I was very weak. So, I don't want to see the trees in the garden that are not so windy, and so big and thick, and so evil. If you don't think so, the other houses are of the same kind and bloom. I want to be overweight, and I want to be overweight. If you are worried about that feeling, you will be troubled. When the main house is open, it is open, and when it is closed, it is closed. When you're good, you're very good, and when you're not good, you're not at all. It's the same kind of thing. It's exemplary, it's misunderstood, it's been misunderstood, it's the same thing, but trees, without exception, are weak. Maybe it's because it's the weakest place where it was first planted, or if it's something that wasn't good or weak. This is also the case universally. So, the life of a tree is very difficult, and it depends on which of the two is the original life of the tree, and the story is different. What do you do? We talk to each other, and we think about the roots and the growth of the tree, and the life of the tree, now and here. So, you know, the part that comes out of this ground, the part of the trunk is divided into. When you reach that level of thickness, you are limited to that thickness, and you say, I can't grow any better. It will wither. It's withering. That's right. The upper part of the surface is fundamentally withered, and the lower part is in a state of withering. It is the same with history. Well, I guess you could say that you are thinking about the wind, and you are thinking about it. I don't know if I've ever seen someone who was born 1000 years ago, and I can't tell you what it feels like to be 100 years ago. I was born 1000 years old, and I don't have the confidence to be born 1000 years. I'm 40 now, and my back hurts. In the meantime, I have been exhausted, and I have not been able to cure the evils of the wind. I haven't been able to get rid of my cough for a month. "40 is the same as I think. In short, there are no people who were born 100 years ago, and they are not 100 years ago. What is it? In this situation, I would like to say it. There are people who want to measure the annual rings, but they are 2000 years old. 1000. I'm alive. Can't you look it up? Isn't it rooted? That's what I'm talking about. So, I'm digressing a bit, but the point is that the ground part is the part where the ground is protruding, isn't it? There is a part of the ground and a part of the ground. The above ground part has a certain lifespan. The underground part and the underground part are the stories of the wind that is growing and not being alive. On the one hand, is that sound actually new? I don't want to talk about it. And if the trunk is not so much, it will wither. And if it is not enough, it will wither. It's different depending on the species of the tree, and it's different depending on the species of the tree. So, I can't tell you how many years it is, but the tree is still very weak. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a big husband. I don't want to be honored. It will continue to increase, and it will grow. This is not the same as before, but that story. In short, there is no prosperity. If you cut it, it will be bad. If you cut it, it will be bad. If you cut it, it's a story that there is a limit to the boundaries of trees, and there are limits to the boundaries of trees. What I'm going to talk about this time is not that I want to go through with such a raised leg, but that we have to accept that trees are going to weaken, and as I said, we have to replace the above ground part. There is also the possibility that it will not be replaced in one generation. As I said earlier, we don't know how long the above ground part will survive depending on the type of tree, because it is different. But that's what it can do, and I'm going to talk about how trees can be vulnerable in some shadows. In the meantime, you should be aware that you may be vulnerable to your thoughts. And what is the resonance of that shadow? What is it that we are talking about now? Regardless of whether you are here or not, the shadow of the soil is very loud. There are almost a few places where you can receive a shadow on the soil. So you know, it's a story about the soil becoming something. In short, the roots becoming something. So, it's going to be something. Normally, I don't know if everyone is growing trees in the garden or trees in the mountains, but it's roughly. I wonder if I should be growing a tree in my garden. It's always the rooting of the trees that you plant in your garden, and you're going to go in the wrong direction. Regardless, whatever it takes, it will do. And also, if there is a leaf that has fallen, it will be swept away. And if there is grass, it will be taken or bought. If there is a puddle, if it is not a puddle, or something, and so on and so forth, and so on. In short, trees and trees are planted. I cut off the lower branches a little, cut off the parts that are out. The part of this that is like this can be cut here as well, and it may wither. There are no trees in the garden in the first place. If there is a tree that is free to sit there, and the fallen leaves are growing, and the branches are growing as they want to grow. In addition, the soil receives the echoes of fallen leaves and the shadows of miscellaneous grasses, and it is different from the way people walk. It can change depending on whether it's raining or not. Usually, the soil in the garden is bad, and the soil in the garden is bad because there is a separation between the surface and the depth. The soil is black, the clay soil is coming out, the clay soil is coming out. If you don't separate them, you're going to be in a state of disconnection. That's how it works. If nothing else, if you don't do anything, you can't do it. So, look at it, and look at it on the surface. There are a lot of parts that you don't know to dig into.
That being said, the general rule must be changed and not discouraged. But most of the people who were there were from the other side.
The current state of affairs is amazing. The condition of the soil, and the fact that it is not receiving the influence of others. That's what I saw in that moving picture. The leaves are very small, and the color of the leaves is very bad. But this is not a weak one. At that time, if there is a possibility that it will wither, and if it does not wither, what should I do at that time?
I did. And I'm talking about how it could be done in any garden. So, if you are a member of the market.
But now that we are in a very good condition, we don't need to fertilize a lot, and we don't need to fertilize a lot. You don't have to cut it, you know. I don't know. So, I guess now is the time for the oath, and now I have a lot of energy, and I wonder if it will continue forever. In other words, in the middle of the world, I always try to keep things in my original state, but I'm always going to talk to you. It will be in its prime for a long time. It's a story about what you need to do to keep it alive. No matter how long we are talking, there is a need to restore the soil, and it is high, and it is high, and it is 10. What is the message? I don't think I've talked about this before, but it's deep, like 1 meter or 1 to 7 meters, which is usually the case with garden trees. And that's about as deep as it gets. But by digging a hole and opening the hole, the water is permeable all the way through, and these microorganisms become active. Forever or long.
In each of the things we just talked about, you dig 1 hole and 1 meter of roots. Even if you are willing to go beyond the base of the second floor, you will be able to make it 1 meter taller. It depends on the fat, but it is definitely a big husband. It is 1 m long and very large. Dig 1 m deep.
It's quite difficult to be about 1 meter. It's like dubsco, so-called dubsco. And if you do it to the point where it goes into the very edge, it will be crushed to about a little more than 1 meter.
Then you dig and plow. You put bamboo in it. You put in the bamboo that you put in it. You put in the bamboo that you cut, and you put it up. Even if you don't do it, you can open a hole and open it. It's easier to finish combing. Well, it's over. Then there's water in there, and it is raining. It's raining and the water is coming in, and the water goes to the inside. It is a story that microorganisms are vitalized because there's air, and microorganisms are energized because there's air. And the soil is good. It's a clay soil, and it's a clay soil. It is a soil that is said to be a bullet flow structure. It's a good idea to wake up in the dirt. It's not going to be dirt. So depending on the thickness of the hole, it is different from the flat rice layer. If you feel this with your hands, you can feel it. You can feel if you do that, you can do it for a long time, and you can go 1 meter deeper. It's just 1 cubic meter. It's vertical, horizontal, and high, so it's 1 cubic meter. It is a good story to tell that it will change into good soil. To put the story in order, trees can be weak. Now there is the possibility of being vulnerable to the original. If you are weak, you must not revert to the roots. What is this depth? I dig 1 meter with the assumption that it is about 1 meter, or about 1 meter for any tree. So I put bamboo in the place where I dug it up, so that air and water could enter, and I would prevent garbage from entering. It would be nice if only air and water could enter. So if you have 1 cubic meter, you can add 1 cubic meter. How many trees do you have to deal with? Well, let's talk about it. It's like this. It's not like the island. If there is an original spirit, no matter how much the original tree is cut. Even if you cut it, you are a big husband, and you are a big husband. Saki is also a big husband, nothing but a big husband. Wow, I feel like it's a story. Sometimes, if you're a member, the soil is so bad. If the tree is weak, you can tell that it is a story. The leaves are small, but the leaves are large. The leaves are small. If you are also in the mood for glue, 1 leaf is large. So, is this a tree of a different species? This is true not only for ash trees, but also for other trees. You should be very careful that the leaves are blatantly smaller than those of the same tree that are planted elsewhere. So, it's supposed to be easier to be at the top, but it's also the root. I wonder if I can take that resonance in a big way. And because the leaves are small,
Please note that it is not. The color of the leaves is bad. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a little bit of a blur, but it's February when I'm taking the picture. The color of the leaves is bad. It's not good. It's now. It's not easy. Find out at this time. At this time of year, we are going to put the lift belt back on and say that we are going to get it back. In winter, the lift belt of the upper green trees is restored. Remember this already. In the winter, I hope I can put the chloroplasts back and remember them. Well, I use the same leaves year after year. Not all the time, not all the time. A few years, 2 years, 3 years. Some people say it's 6 or 7 years, but the bottom line is, you're going to use it for a long time. You have to keep your body strong, even if you don't fall, when it is always green. So, in short, it's called a tree trunk, and it's like this. And if you look at it from a distance, it's shaped like this. The color tends to be bad, but if you don't see it now, but from spring to summer, if the color of the leaves is bad, it's a serious illness. The color of the leaves is also bad, and the leaves that come out are also small. The possibility of severe illness is high. It's a story about how vulnerable you are to be very vulnerable. It's also weak. The leaves may be small and the color of the leaves may be bad, but the upper part may be a little more or less dead. It's not a condition. As soon as new branches appear, they are dying all the time. And even if you take it now, you want to see a new branch come out or a dead branch. So too. Weakness becomes one sage, but when you look at it, you can see that the small color of the large leaves is bad, and the upper part is withered. Looking at this side, the tree has the potential to be weak, and the trunk has the potential to replace it eventually. If it's a universal tree, you might think it's not that thick. It's a demon. Before the end of life, there is also a pattern to renew the trunk. It's different from what you want to do with your own garden or your own tree. With that in mind, the soil in the garden is fundamentally bad. And if you think that this is a pre-modern era, you are very wrong. At some point, this could happen. But, you know, the way to restore the vitality of the tree, or rather, to keep the tree alive in the last century, is to improve the soil. I think it's a good idea to keep that in mind, because I thought it was a very good comment, and it contained a lesson, so I feel like I'm going to discuss it this time. That's what I'm talking about today. Please subscribe to our channel. I am glad to see and listen to you until the very end of the day. See you in the next moving picture.